Hey guys, welcome to Herding Little Cows to the Glory of God. I'm Sarah. I'm married to Mark. He's behind the camera. And this is my oldest daughter at home, Naomi, and my youngest baby at home, Elisha. So Naomi doesn't even know why she's here today. And she's going to have to leave in a minute because she's going to have to go check our muffins. But anyway, Daddy and I were talking last night in bed, and he asked me what I was thinking. And I told him that when he asks me, what are you thinking? I have to prioritize which thing I'm thinking about that he wants to hear about. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so she understands. Mark does not understand this. Mark
Not
thinks,
at all.
yeah, he'll talk from behind the camera. He's not feeling good this morning. But Mark has a one-track mind.
Literally.
So if he's thinking about one thing, he's not thinking about the thing we just had a discussion about, and he's not thinking about some random other thing that's going on. Where when I'm thinking about something, we were talking about the kids' education, and 2 seconds later, he's like, what are you thinking about? And I'm like, well, what we were talking about, but I'm also thinking about my grocery order for tomorrow. And he didn't understand how I do both. Do you do both?
And see, I think it's slightly different from both.
Okay.
Maybe because of my ADHD, but I often say nothing because it's probably nothing you want to hear about. It's just
That's what
running away.
Well, if
I have
you
more
ask
than
me what I'm thinking about, and I say nothing,
He
I'm
means
not capable.
nothing.
he
means he just wasn't
absolutely
thinking.
nothing going on in
Nothing's
there.
going on up there.
Where when he asks what I'm thinking about, do I want to tell him I'm thinking about the spider that's in the corner while I'm also thinking about having to buy potatoes tomorrow, right? Because
Yeah.
I think he probably wants to hear, oh, I was thinking I need to buy some potatoes tomorrow because we don't have any potatoes in the house.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if the spider's really big and I need to kill it, I'll tell him, but we live in Maine. We don't have any dangerous spiders in our house, so it's okay. But do you understand how I think?
Yeah, I think so.
But we can be having a conversation about, let's say, supper. And then you'll mention something else. And then I'm on to that thing, and you guys go back to supper, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And you're like, we were just talking about supper. I lose track a lot, but you guys seem to be able to keep track of
Well, he
not
loses
just one or
track
two
a
things,
lot.
but 73 things or something somehow.
Someone has to.
He loses track a lot, but also if we're talking about something and we're trying to think of a name or a place or something, and then a couple hours later, in the middle of another conversation, we think of the name. You can say it, and he totally knows what you're talking about.
It's weird. There's certain things he knows. I'm going to have you go check those muffins real quick and just take them out if they're done. She'll be right back for our conversation. Oh, she had to lock her brace. So Naomi's still recovering from knee surgery and she has to walk with her brace locked, but she sits with it unlocked. So does that look good? So yeah, Mark remembers random things like today. Well, not even that. Today we were doing a geography game at breakfast, and the country was Belize. And he was like, oh, I know one person from Belize. His name is this, da da da. Nobody he's known the entire time we've known each other, which was 22 years.
We worked together 30 years ago.
And you could probably tell me where he lived if you knew, if you had known that and stuff, you would have been able to tell me all those things.
Yep.
But if we have a conversation about what we're having for breakfast tomorrow, he'll ask me while I'm making breakfast tomorrow what I'm making. Okay, we had to stop for a minute. So Mark was saying that it's like the hard drive. What were you saying? The hard drive?
My hard drive somewhat functions. I've got some bad sectors, but my hard drive functions. But the random access memory that, if you cleared your cache on your, or cache, which is it? Yeah, comments on that one. It's I have to keep going in every time I open Facebook and putting in my password all over again because, if I shut it down for 3 seconds, I've forgotten about it. Whereas you keep, 27 tabs open on your phone all the time. And I think you know
really
what's
do.
going on.
I actually do keep 27 tabs open on my phone at all times. And both these guys are like, how do you do that?
Why would you do that?
But anyway, yeah, Mark has memories from long time ago, but can't remember what we're talking about at the moment. And then also the one-track mind thing. So if I ask him something, we talked about something we're going to do as a family tomorrow. And then a little bit later, I said something about it. He's like, oh yeah. And it was new knowledge to him. Like a vague
it is
memory.
New knowledge to me. You will tell me, I will sit in bed like we did last night and say, what are we doing this week? And you rattle off this whole list of I have these videos and this shopping list and this whole thing that's going to be integrated this way and we're going to shoot it this way. And then the day will come tomorrow, I think, when we're actually going to shoot some of this video, and I will be like, okay, so what are we doing? Because I will have completely not been able to access it. Not that it didn't happen, not that I forget everything, but I will not be able to access whatever it was you told me.
And even some of those things from the moment, like if our videos sometimes look a little weird, it's because I tell Mark beforehand, this is what I'm looking for in this video, and he's filming it. Excuse me. And he's filming it, and he'll forget what we had just said we were going to do. So a good example of this. I was making French toast casserole the other day, and I'm cutting the bread, and a little bit started to fall off the board. And so Mark, trying to be helpful, went to grab the bread. And I said, I need to butter that before... I don't know if I said the pan, but I said, I need to butter that before we put it in. And he still picked up the bread and put it in the pan.
Right.
So I know that I might not have been
And then about 10
clearly.
seconds later, when you looked at me funny, I was like, what?
Yeah. I know I may not have been communicating totally clearly, but he also doesn't have the, I should stop and ask, what did you mean by that? Right?
Yeah.
Like, do you not want me doing this thing? Because I said the thing because he started picking up the bread. Does that make sense? We say this to the kids a lot. Like, I know I should have been more clear, because we say that to the kids a lot. If you just tell the kids stop, they might be doing 3 things and they stop one, but the thing that's annoying you is not the thing they stop, and they don't know that they're still doing the thing that's annoying you. But Mark's body doesn't have the awareness that, oh, she said something to me, I should clarify what's I'm doing.
I think this is why I don't talk on the phone much at all, and if I do, I literally have to be locked in a room by myself. If someone walks by me while I'm in a room and I'm talking on the phone, I can no longer speak on the phone.
Right.
If I'm talking on the phone, that's the only way I can do it. And it still may be very hard, but I can function talking on the phone for even a long period of time, as long as I am completely undisturbed.
Right.
But if someone comes in and asks me a question, I now like just stop talking to the person, and I have no idea what's going on. It's part of why we do our videos the way we do, because I don't remember what's going on.
Pause for a minute. Did those muffins come out of the oven? See, Mark probably forgot we had muffins in the oven that we were needing to deal with.
I'm okay.
No, I'm just saying, like, our muffins, if Mark was responsible for doing the muffins, they would have just burned in the oven.
I would set timers, because I know I forget everything. Like if I if I wash dishes and put the cast iron on to dry, I have to either set a timer or tell someone else, this is on, you need to check this. Right.
So, so it's just how our brains work differently.
Yeah, so how do your brains work? Is this a man-woman thing? Is this a my broken brain thing? Is this a...
Share with us in the comments, because we're interested to see how this all plays out.
Because it plays in the dynamics of parenting and marriage and just getting
day-to-day
stuff
life.
done.
Well, because like for us, because of, and I think this is because of Mark's broken brain, not because he's a man. But it might be because he's a man. I don't know. I'm not trying to put all men down when I say this. I'm not trying to put Mark down when I say this either. That sounded bad. How Mark's brain works. If him and I are having a conversation, and he's still here with us, I just don't want people to know I'm not talking bad about you behind your back. I'm talking bad about you right in front of you. This is how Mark's brain works. If him and I are having a conversation, and one of the kids interrupts to ask me a question, Mark totally loses his train of thought about what we're talking about. But if one of the kids comes to ask Daddy a question, Daddy needs to stop the conversation right there and answer the question.
Because otherwise the question didn't exist.
Right, because otherwise the question didn't exist. So it makes it difficult, because as a wife, I want to give my husband my full attention, but I also want to help the kid in a reasonable amount of time. But Mark's brain doesn't work on time either. So he'll think he's doing something for 5 minutes, which is really 45 minutes. And so that's it. I don't want to cut him off, but if the child's been standing there for a little bit, I want to answer the child's question.
I think this is when we started realizing that, like 7.5 years ago, like I was working I had been working in the operating room, I worked in sterile processing, and then I got my CNA and started doing patient care. I started realizing that I cannot multitask. Like if I'm with a patient, I'm with a patient, and I've forgotten entirely what's going on with the other patient. And there were some events that happened in my work that it became unsafe for me to supervise patients.
Right. No one ever got hurt in any of that. So don't take it like that. He was just realizing that, I'm sure as a parent you've done this once in a while, or maybe we're the only parents that do this, but have you ever put a child in timeout out of your sight. And then suddenly the child, like 10 minutes later, is like, Mom, can I come out?
For 2 hours.
It has happened before in our family. It doesn't happen all the time, but if Mark was responsible for timeouts, it would happen a lot more often.
Yeah, if I sent you to your room, somebody else is going to have to rescue
Out of
you
sight, out of
because
mind for Mark.
Totally.
Totally. So it's not, I'm not saying it never happens to the average person, because we get this a lot. When we explain something that's going on with Mark, people are like, oh, I do that too.
No, you don't.
But Mark does it to the extreme.
It's
So,
the
like-
reason I can't drive, and I can't even drive the lawn tractor anymore.
Right.
Like, because I will forget what I'm doing. If I look at something else, I'm just going to run into a wall.
So like I have occasionally forgotten the child in timeout. But it's usually because something totally obscure happens. Like, oh, I'm cooking supper. I say, go sit in your bed for a minute. I'll come deal with you. And then the phone rings and my mom needs me to go look up information on the computer, and like something totally weird happens, as opposed to I was just cooking dinner. I sent you to your room for a minute. I was going to finish the potatoes, and when the potatoes got done, I went and talked to you.
But what does that feel like in your head? Is there a little timer going on back there?
No.
Like with the muffins, is there a timer going on in your head that just says,
No,
it's
so
been
like
5 minutes, I'll go talk to them?
No, so like the thing with the timeout is I would think in my head, when I'm done cutting these potatoes, I'm going to go talk to that child. Mm-hmm. So when the potato task gets done, the next step is to go talk to the child.
But you have some sort of time in your head of when the potatoes would be done. You don't think, I'll be sitting here cutting potatoes for an hour.
Right.
I think that's what he's saying, is even if you're not thinking about a clock, there's some sort of little clock in your mind. That you
Right.
know.
There's something that's saying they're not going to be there for
And
the
a
next
to-do
hour.
list or something.
While I do this. Yeah.
A to-do list in your head. So, Naomi, you're an ADHD person. How do you handle all of that?
Very poorly. See, this setting a timer thing sounds like a really good idea if you actually remember to set the timer.
It's like
Otherwise, you forget about it until you smell the banana muffins, and then you're like, oh, I need to go check those. Yeah.
And where we're in a room with the doors closed.
Okay, so you can smell the banana muffins, and that like gives your olfactory senses some sort of trigger to your memory. But
Not
what about
always.
the kid in the other room?
It's when they say, Mom.
Mom.
No, so
And then you tell them, stop yelling.
So that's what I'm saying. And I also think it depends, like, in my brain, and I'm not saying either of you are wrong with this. In my brain, I tend to have a list of importance too. And the child in the bedroom is more important than the rest of dinner getting done.
Well,
Does
I
that
think
make sense?
Yeah.
But you,
That's
it's
part
just...
of it too. If my phone dings and I look at it, I have no idea what I'm doing anymore.
Right.
So I'll be like doom scrolling on my phone and looking through our YouTube studio notifications and messages, and I'm like, somebody wrote to me at some point. Now I need to go look, and I'm 27 messages back and all of that. When all I was trying to do was check the time, but I forgot what I was doing.
Well, and that's difficult because I'll say to Mark,
I think that's a
like,
technology
our son-
thing too, though.
yeah, like our son is coming over tonight, and I'll say, hey, can you write to him to ask him to bring whatever? Like, I'm just making something. Could you ask him to bring some drinks tonight? And so I can ask that and watch Mark pick up his phone. But if there's something else already on his screen, like we got an email or he got a message from someone else, he might
Facebook happens to be on his screen.
or Facebook happens to be on, he might totally forget that I asked him to write to Nathaniel. So then Nathaniel shows up with no drinks, and I can get kind of upset at Nathaniel, like, why didn't you bring the thing we asked? And I find out that Mark never sent him the message. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So if I ever talk to one of you viewers, especially if you're one of our, someone we talk to regularly, if I ever talk to you and I seem super confused at what you're talking about, it might be because there was a miscommunication where Mark and I thought something was going on and the message didn't get translated properly.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
a lot of times I will answer comments, like I'll say to you, this person said this and I'm going to say this back, or I'll answer a question because, you don't have time to answer all the questions that everybody asks.
right.
And I do.
And we love all your comments.
Yes,
please,
those are awesome.
like, you guys are such encouragers and we love to answer your things. Just know that if we miss something, Mark does a lot of the answering of comments, but if he sees your comment come up and then I ask him a question, he might totally forget that you wrote a comment. And so,
and once the notification's gone, I'm done.
yeah. So,
So for some reason, they don't come up on your phone all the time. Like,
right.
sometimes they come up in the YouTube notification, sometimes the studio notifications.
Yeah, YouTube's
Email.
weird and sometimes you have to go looking for them. So anyway, just to explain why our channel might seem disjointed sometimes. We have a lot of brain issues in our house, but they're not like, please don't write the comments about why we shouldn't have children because of brain issues and everything. The brain issues we have 2 children who happen to be our older children. Naomi's one of them, who have ADHD, her and Samuel. And so that is lots of people in this world have ADHD, and it has nothing to do with how many,
Not genetic.
it has nothing to do with how many children we've had or
And
any of
Josiah's
that.
stroke in utero had nothing to do with the way we raised
Right,
him.
right.
or-
Josiah's stroke is totally different. So don't take this. We have multiple varying levels of brain stuff going on in our house. And so trying to get all of us organized at the same time can be very difficult because Naomi's brain works different than Daddy's brain, which works different than Josiah's brain, which works different than my brain, which I think is a typically functioning brain, but because we have so many things around the house, I'm not sure.
I think you're exceptional. Like, I think most people can do something of what you do, but I think you do it well. And maybe it's because there's just such a demand for it.
I think God has given me grace to be able to keep a lot of balls going.
This is the powerhouse of the entire household.
So it's one of those that there's just a lot, and I don't realize how my brain works differently than Mark's brain until we have conversations like this. Because when he asked me last night, what are you thinking? I told him I was thinking about the groceries, but we had just finished thinking about education stuff. So his brain was still on the education stuff and had no idea how I got into the other thing and was still able to go back to the education stuff we were talking about.
Sometimes it can be kind of like word association, where, you know, you start with one word and you end up with a totally different word because you just...
I guess that,
Derail the train of thought.
yeah. So let us know. How does your brain work? Do you and your spouse find that your brains work differently? Or maybe this is just a good talking point. Because I found that there's times that I'll watch a YouTube video and it's something I've never even thought of. And then it makes a good talking point for Mark and I. Because I'll be like, so I was watching this YouTube video and this person said this. What are your thoughts on this? Because maybe you'll mention this to your husband and your husband's like, oh, yeah, I totally don't think like that.
And you might not think of it as your brain's working differently. You might think of it as like, oh, you weren't paying attention or whatever. So.
So let us know. We will see you guys next time on Herding Little Cows to the Glory of God.